Fellas, the Russian Empire is in some drama. Jesus Christ, that is physically fucking repulsive to even say. Why the fuck am I doing this? If you don't know what Russia is, it is one of the largest empires on Earth, stretching from Warsaw in the west to Vladivostok in the far east. And well, they have just had a revolution. Germany and Austria-Hungary have been absolutely dumpstering them in this great war up to this point. This catastrophic failure has combined with political chaos in the courts of Petrograd and decades of civil and economic unrest to cause the unthinkable. The end of monarchy in Russia. So anyways, guys, we're gonna take a look at how this happened. It all began on March 3rd, or February 18th in the Russian calendar, when the workers of the Putilov plant went on strike over working conditions and food rationing. A few days later, they were joined by a large number of women who took to the streets on International Women's Day. By the end of February, upwards of 250,000 people were protesting against the Tsardom, and the Petrograd garrisons were mutinying and joining the protesters. In response, the Tsar did something that would prove controversial: disperse the State Duma. On the 27th of February, the liberals, conservatives, and progressives of the now dispersed Duma reconvened as a provisional committee, which was followed by the socialist factions declaring the Petrograd Soviet. Petrograd was in a state of what can only really be described as chaos. Many military and police officers were killed, prisons and barracks were burned, and storehouses were looted. The military failed to crush the uprising, and on March 2nd or 15th, Tsar Nicholas abdicated, and after his brother refused the crown, the Russian monarchy ceased to exist. The Duma proclaimed a provisional government the following day. The empire is, in fact, over. So anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think about this absolutely insane turn of events. There's a lot of uncertainty ahead for Russia, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. The Russia situation just got a whole lot crazier. Since last time, the Russian provisional government has been in a dual power situation, with the Petrograd Soviet and Provisional Duma fighting each other for power over the people of Russia. The provisional government has made some broadly popular decisions, like removing press censorship, legalizing unions, amnestying political prisoners, and granting greater autonomy to the minorities of the country. However, the Soviet has not been cooperative. Their Order Number 1 effectively placed the Soviet in charge of the military by demanding that the soldiers only follow orders from the government that did not contradict their own orders. But anyways, guys, the main point of this is to tell you that Vladimir Lenin has arrived in Russia. If you don't know who Vladimir Lenin is, he's basically the mastermind behind the Bolshevik faction of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, which is basically its own party. Other major figures in that party, like Julius Martov and Leon Trotsky, have also made their way back to Russia. Lenin arrived in early April and published his April theses with the intent of pushing Bolshevik party program in a far more radical direction. This was accompanied by the provisional government becoming embroiled in drama over their continuation of involvement in the Great War, leading to a cabinet reshuffling. I don't know, guys, let me know what you guys think. Are the Bolsheviks looking poised for a takeover? The socialist revolutionaries and Mensheviks seem willing to prop up the provisional government, but the Bolsheviks are gaining popularity, and Lenin seems like a popular guy. I don't know, let me know what you guys think. Fellas, the Russia situation keeps getting crazier. The Russian army launched a massive offensive on June 16th, 29th, to score a massive victory in order to bolster war support at home and convince the rest of the Entente of Russia's ability to remain in the war. It was ordered by Minister of War Alexander Kerensky. Now, if you don't know who Alexander Kerensky is, he's a lawyer from Simbirsk who was a member of PSR before joining the Trudovik faction that broke away from them. He held leadership positions in both the Petrograd Soviet and the Provisional Duma, and after the cabinet reshuffling, now known as the April Crisis, he made his way into the Minister of War position. He was strongly in favor of continuing the war and encouraging him to lobby for a new offensive. But as it turns out, the Russian army was not doing good. They ran out of steam quickly, the soldiers mutinied, and eventually they were driven back by Austro-German forces. As of July 6th, 19th, the Russian military has all but disintegrated. Things are looking bleak for Russia in this particular war. Guys, the Russia situation has just gotten worse. In response to yet another governmental collapse that put Kerensky as prime minister and the failures of the army during the Kerensky Offensive, a huge armed insurrection occurred in Petrograd in the first days of July, with large protests and strikes breaking out proclaiming all power to the Soviets. However, the Bolsheviks refused to provide overt support, and the protests were suppressed brutally by the provisional government, with perhaps several hundred people killed. This was used as a pretext to arrest most of the Bolshevik leadership, with Lenin himself fleeing to Finland. I don't know, guys, Russia seems like it's destabilizing with each passing day, but again, let me know what you guys think about this whole Russia situation. Guys, The Russia situation is absolutely insane. According to the provisional government, General Kornilov has just attempted to storm Petrograd. If you don't know who he is, he's a general from Central Asia who was recently made commander-in-chief of the Russian army. He was very popular amongst the officers of the military and was increasingly concerned about the chaos in Petrograd. Kerensky, meanwhile, feared his growing power and was looking for an excuse to get rid of him. So, after a series of communications and miscommunications, Kerensky demanded his resignation and Kornilov refused, attempting to march on Petrograd to disperse the Soviets and restore order beginning on August 27th, September 10th. Kornilov never actually left his command post, instead ordering a subordinate with a small force towards the city, but Kerensky had a panic attack. He released the imprisoned Bolshevik leaders and helped arm the workers of the city to resist the impending coup, which, after a few small skirmishes, fell apart quickly. Kornilov was soon arrested, but the far left is in a really strong position now. They are armed, and the Bolsheviks have seen their mass support explode since July. It makes you wonder if Kerensky didn't royally fuck himself over with this decision. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think about how the whole Russia situation has developed. The Russia situation has escalated dramatically. Since the Kornilov putsch, Kerensky's government has been sputtering, being shifted even further to the left in an attempt to win support. However, the Bolsheviks and the Petrograd Soviet recently achieved a majority, and their influence has grown considerably. In the early morning of October 25th, in response to the provisional government shutting down several Bolshevik newspapers, an armed revolt by far-left factions broke out. The Red Guard militia, supported by thousands of soldiers and sailors, took control of the city and eventually attacked the Winter Palace, destroying the government completely. Kerensky fled the city, meeting up with the Cossacks of Adam and Krasnov, but their counterattack on the city failed, and Kerensky fled the country. Lenin quickly issued his proclamation to the citizens of Russia, followed by his decree on land, legally abolishing private property, and his decree on peace, initiating talks with the Central Powers to achieve, quote, peace without annexations. The establishment of a new governing body, called the Council of People's Commissars, or Sovnarkom, was also declared. This was followed by the Don Cossacks of Alexei Kaledin declaring independence with the aid of General Alexeyev, with the aim of resisting the rise of Bolshevik power. It seems that civil war in Russia is inevitable. Alright guys, the Russia situation is evolving rapidly. Russia just had its first free election in its entire history on November 25th. The results were truly a sight to behold, with the socialist revolutionaries achieving a sizable plurality. The Bolsheviks came in second, dominating the urban and soldier votes, while the Ukrainian SRs and national parties came in a collective third place. The Mensheviks and cadets were both snowed in, with the catastrophic fall-off of the cadets in the past year legitimately needing to be studied. But anyways, yeah, congratulations to the SRs, they picked up a huge win. Hopefully that Lenin guy isn't a sore loser and does something dumb like dissolve the Constituent Assembly. Fellas, it seems Lenin was a bit of a sore loser after all. On the 5th, 18th of January, the Constituent Assembly was smothered in its crib, with Lenin ordering its dissolution and its replacement by the Third All-Russian Congress of Soviets a few days later. This Congress legally ratified the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic that had been established after the October Revolution. As a result, Russia is now the world's first communist country. This is a massive fucking deal, you guys, and the Bolshevik government has already begun nationalizing the banks, railroads, and other major industries, passing them into the hands of a Supreme Economic Council. This has been followed by continuing reports of skirmishes and declarations of secession breaking out across the Russian territories. This includes Ukraine, which declared its independence a few days after the dissolution of the assembly. The future of Russia is looking pretty bleak, I'm not gonna lie, guys. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. Guys, the Russia situation has escalated dramatically. On the 18th of February, pissed at the Bolsheviks dragging their feet in peace negotiations, the German army launched a massive offensive into Ukraine, Belarus, and the Baltic states. They also propped up the Ukrainian government, which was being beaten back by Bolshevik armies. This offensive proved utterly devastating. The Bolshevik armies dissolved like the fucking Wicked Witch of the West, and the Germans faced very little resistance. By March 3rd, the Bolsheviks expressed willingness to negotiate, and the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk was signed, formally dropping Russia out of the Great War. A series of client states have been established, and the independence of Ukraine has been secured. Overall, guys, massive change in the fortunes for the Bolsheviks, losing all that land and breaking one of their big promises. Absolutely crazy developments, you guys. Let me know what you guys think. Are these German gains sustainable? Do you think they have a chance at winning the Great War now because of it? The Russia situation has gotten pretty crazy. The fringes of the empire have broken apart, and the rise of Soviet power is facing increasingly bloody resistance. The Volunteer Army and other White Army forces have started off with a series of defeats. At the end of February, Bolshevik forces took Rostov-on-Don and Novocherkassk, dispersing the Don Cossacks and forcing the Volunteer Army on a retreat now known as the Kuban Ice March. The army was reinforced by other anti-Red forces, actually increasing in size during the campaign. However, General Kornilov would be killed during a failed attack on Ekaterinodar. Anton Denikin would take command, and the now bolstered army returned north through April and May, linking up with Ataman Krasnov and his Cossacks. If you don't know who Anton Denikin is, wait about 9 or 10 months and I will be happy to tell you over a lunch break sometime. The campaign was slightly favorable for the Whites numbers-wise, but Bolshevik numbers in the region increased dramatically. I don't know, guys, how do you think this is all going to turn out? It's really crazy how things have shaped out in the comparatively short time. Guys, the Russia situation is absolutely insane. Entente forces from France, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Japan have begun intervention operations across Russia. On March 3rd, British troops intervened in Murmansk at the request of a Soviet council that feared German occupation, and through March, April, and May have occupied many other towns on all sides of the former empire. It's not known how long they will remain, but it seems like they are quickly taking the side of the White Army. A regional government in northern Russia has also been established in the territories of intervention, and it seems to be a major move against the Reds. Let me know what you guys think. Will this intervention be enough to help the White Army topple the Soviets? I suppose only time will tell. But yeah, guys, the Russia situation is getting quite chaotic. There's a lot of factions at play now. It's getting kind of hard to keep track of. Remember what I said about chaos? Well, the Russia situation just got more chaotic. The Czechoslovak Legion, after threats from the Bolshevik and a clash with Hungarian troops in Chelyabinsk, fucking revolted on May 14th, taking over big chunks of the Trans-Siberian Railway. If you don't know what the Czechoslovak Legion is, it's basically a large force of Czechs and Slovaks that were living in Russia, armed by the Entente to fight against Austria-Hungary to help their subjugated comrades attain their freedom. Austria-Hungary owns Czechoslovakia, by the way. The Bolsheviks originally allowed them to leave unimpeded, but after some fighting in Siberia, the Legion has revolted and thrown their hat into the Russian anarchy. They scored some crushing victories over the Bolshevik troops in May and June, taking major cities and control over the vital Trans-Siberian Railway. This has also led to a White Army popping up in Siberia and the Urals, serving as a new front against the Bolsheviks. Oh, and they literally just fucking stole the Imperial gold reserves. Go off, I guess. Things seem to be going south for the Reds very quickly, guys. Do you think they may end up losing this civil war? Remember what I was saying about chaos? Again? Well, the fucking Russia situation is getting absolutely crazy. The left SRs, Bolshevik allies that split from the regular SRs, were pissed off over a series of authoritarian measures taken by the Bolsheviks to crush dissent within the Congress of Soviets. They assassinated the German ambassador in Moscow in order to try and get Russia to re-enter World War I, as they wanted to see the defeat of the capitalist imperialist Germans to its conclusion. This triggered an uprising in Moscow on July 6th and 7th, which threatened to destroy the entire Bolshevik leadership in one fell swoop. However, the left SR leadership failed to act decisively, and the revolt would be crushed and their leadership imprisoned. The Bolsheviks have basically no friends left, which carries benefits and drawbacks, but all that can be said for sure is that the revolutionary government has gotten a lot more narrow. Guys, the Bolsheviks have gotten into some serious drama. Reports are coming in that on the 17th of July, the imprisoned Russian royal family was murdered in Yekaterinburg to prevent their capture by white forces or the Czechoslovaks. Yes, I know the Bolsheviks tried their absolute hardest to cover up the murders, and this section is inherently anachronistic, just roll with it. If you don't know what the royal family is, they are the royal family of Russia. This is absolutely insane if true, and displays just how far and bloody the Russia situation has gone. Guys, the Vladimir Lenin situation is absolutely insane. On August 30th, he was almost fucking assassinated. He was shot 3 times by Fanny Kaplan, an SR member. She considered him an authoritarian and a traitor who was setting the cause of socialism back with his revolution. Despite one bullet striking his neck and filling his lungs with blood, Lenin would recover, although it is likely he will be crippled for the rest of his life. But yeah, guys, just a quick one today. I just wanted to cover it as it's pretty important. The Volunteer Army has secured a massive victory against the Bolsheviks. As of November 15th, the Second Kuban campaign has come to its conclusion, resulting in nearly the entire North Caucasus falling under their control. Ekaterinodar was taken on August 15th, followed by Novorossiysk a few days later. The Terek Cossacks and the Kuban Rada also joined the White forces, essentially driving the Reds from the region. This has proven utterly catastrophic for the Bolsheviks, as the Whites are now poised to march north and retake the Don, and Red forces have taken upwards of 45,000 casualties against an enemy they outnumbered considerably. This is absolutely insane, guys. There is a chance that the White Army can rally and change the future of Russia forever. Guys, the Russia situation keeps getting crazier. The Omsk Directory, the government of the White Army in Siberia and the Ural foothills, made up primarily of right SRs and other moderate leftists, was overthrown on November 18th by Admiral Alexander Kolchak. If you don't know who Kolchak is, he's a naval officer and polar explorer from St. Petersburg who has come to be pretty influential in military circles after returning from his self-imposed exile. He was proclaimed supreme ruler of Russia, and the SRs were arrested, largely ending their party as a force in Russia. The coup was carried out to establish concentrated, decisive, and unified power to properly counter Bolshevik advances. At least that's what they're saying. However, this will likely strengthen the White armies overall, so let me know what you guys think about this turn of events. Guys, the Russia situation has just gotten more chaotic. The Great War officially ended on November 11th, which resulted in the German Empire withdrawing from its eastern territories. This has naturally led to the mother of all power vacuums opening up. The Hetmanate regime in Ukraine has been toppled in record time, the anarchists have risen up in the southeast, and the Bolshevik armies are marching through Belarus and the Baltic states, which in some places have also fallen into civil war. These are all very new and very weak countries at the moment, so there is a chance the Bolsheviks just sweep them up. Unless places like Estonia can resist their invasion, things are looking quite grim. At this point, I will need to split the absolutely insane Ukraine situation from the absolutely insane Russia one. Almost immediately after the German withdrawal, the Bolsheviks invaded Ukraine for the second time. They picked up steam in early January, occupying Kyiv on the 3rd, Chernihiv on the 12th, and Poltava on the 20th. The anarchists in the southeast are also nominally aligned with the Bolsheviks, so it looks like the Ukrainian People's Republic is in a dire situation. As of February 5th, Kyiv has fallen, and the entirety of left bank Ukraine lies in Bolshevik hands, with follow-up offensives against the retreating Ukrainians being undertaken. Things are looking pretty grim for Ukraine, but let me know what you guys think. Fellas, the Russia situation is absolutely fucking crazy. I still have 4 years of this bullshit. Kolchak has struck west. The eastern front of the Civil War has been chaotic since it began, with front lines being more of a suggestion than anything else. Beginning March 4th, Kolchak sent over 110,000 men west, attempting to advance to a line that ran roughly from Vyatka through Kazan, Simbirsk, Samara, and Saratov. They captured hundreds of towns and villages, including Ufa, and got very close to the Volga River, but the Reds were able to stand and check their advances before they took any of the major river crossings by the end of April. Despite that, though, the White armies are poised to actually link up in the south and the north, and the Bolshevik regime is under serious threat. It will likely be months before they can counterattack, and by then the Whites will have consolidated. I hate to say this, but it might be so fucking over for the Bolsheviks. But hopefully I'm not speaking too soon. Fellas, I might have spoken too soon. Almost immediately after Kolchak's offensive bogged down, Mikhail Frunze and Mikhail Tukhachevsky launched a massive counterattack. By June, all White gains had been erased, with entire divisions destroyed and numerous cities taken. After this, the Whites were actually driven back over the Urals in complete disarray, with Chelyabinsk, Ekaterinburg, and Tyumen falling by the end of July. This is a catastrophic defeat for the White Army, and it calls into question whether or not Kolchak can continue effective resistance. It might be totally over for Alexander Kolchak. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think they can come back, or are the Reds just set to push them straight into the Pacific? The Ukraine situation is spiraling out of control. The White armies of General Denikin have gone on the offensive in Ukraine beginning in June, sweeping through the Donbass after the anarchist troops were hung out to dry by their supposed allies, the Bolsheviks. They've advanced like a typhoon, with huge portions of the left bank Ukraine falling to their advances by the beginning of July, coinciding with Peter Wrangel's capture of Tsaritsyn. This has proven to be catastrophic for the Bolshevik armies, who have already been dealing with the uprising of Adam and Grigoriev in the southwest, and it is likely that they will have to abandon Ukraine completely. The UPR forces that have been hemmed into the far west of the country have also been able to capitalize, pushing east against the now badly outnumbered and surrounded Bolshevik armies. This is nothing short of a military disaster, and I don't want to jump the gun, but it might be over for the Bolsheviks. News is coming in from the Baltic states. Estonia had successfully pushed the Red Armies out of its country back in January and recently has turned to aiding their Latvian comrades. The Latvian situation has been absolutely insane. They have been heavily aided by Baltic Germans and the Freikorps, which helped push the Bolsheviks from the west of the country. However, the Germans actually couped the Latvian government. Estonia continued to recognize the deposed government, and conflict immediately broke out. As of June 22nd, however, the Estonian-Latvian coalition has decisively routed the Baltic German forces, causing a ceasefire to be brokered by July 3rd, with remaining German troops either joining the White Army or remaining under Latvian command. Attentions are quickly being turned to crushing the remaining Bolsheviks in the Baltic states. Of extra note is that of General Yudenich, who has recognized Estonia's independence in exchange for the country allowing White armies to station themselves in the country, and potentially use it as a base to march on Petrograd. But that would be absolutely insane, right? Guys, the Russia situation is absolutely fucking insane. General Denikin has ordered an advance on Moscow itself after White forces swept the Bolsheviks from Ukraine, capturing Kyiv in August. The Bolsheviks are facing their greatest test yet, with hundreds of cities and towns falling to the White advances, including Kursk and Voronezh in September and Oryol on October 14th. They are a mere 360 kilometers from Moscow, and Tula is basically fucking open. If the Reds can't turn this around, it may be... Hey, wait a minute, what's this? Holy shit! The anarchists are cashing in their Makhno in the bank on the overstretched Whites. The situation has gotten absolutely insane, and the Whites are being driven from Ukraine as we speak. And Denikin is risking a complete collapse of the front. Dear God, the Reds are counterattacking. Budyani has taken Voronezh. It might be so over for the White Army. But anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think. Things are happening at a rapid pace here, guys. This drama keeps getting more and more insane with each passing day. Things have changed dramatically in the Russia situation. General Yudenich, with the help of Estonia, struck at Petrograd. The Red Front unhinged, and the Whites made it to the suburbs of the city by mid-October, taking positions on the Pulkovo Heights. It seemed like they would take the city, however, Denikin's refusal to recognize Finnish independence meant that they refused to help, and Trotsky was able to flood in reinforcements and drive the Whites back by November. Yudenich's army was nearly destroyed, and Estonia officially secured its independence after some negotiations. The White cause is getting super desperate, guys. I don't know how much longer they can hold out against the Bolsheviks. Breaking news from Siberia as the Russia drama has escalated further. The Whites have been functionally broken, with the Reds taking town after town, capturing Omsk in a night raid on November 14th, kicking off a retreat of thousands of kilometers by the White Army, constantly harassed by insurrections across Siberia. Their retreat has been further complicated by the fact that the Czechoslovak Legion is still kicking around, and also revolted against the White Army, denying them the use of many critical rail lines. It also seems like Kolchak himself was captured by the Czechoslovaks. Time will tell what happens to him, but for now his army is demoralized and shattered. I don't want to make any predictions, but it seems like the White cause in Siberia might be completely over. Fellas, the Alexander Kolchak situation is absolutely insane. The Czechoslovaks ended up turning him over to the left SRs who had revolted and taken Irkutsk. They promptly put him on trial, and despite Sovnarkom ordering his life to be spared, they decided to execute him anyway. Alexander Kolchak was shot on February 6th, with command of what was left of the Siberian army passing to Ataman Semyonov. As of now, White forces have mostly held up in the regions around Chita, with plans to establish a foothold in the extreme Far East around Vladivostok with Japanese aid. There are also plans floating around from the left to establish a Far Eastern Socialist Republic to serve as a buffer state with Japan and mop up the remaining White forces, as Bolshevik armies have stopped at Lake Baikal. Lord knows how this situation is going to evolve, but Siberia has quieted down considerably. Fellas, the White Army in the Caucasus may be totally done. After the collapse of the Moscow offensive, they have been on the receiving end of defeat after defeat, losing the Donbass in December, Taganrog on January 7th, and Rostov-on-Don by the 10th. This has culminated in a catastrophic evacuation from Novorossiysk over the course of March 1920. They received some help from the British in their evacuation, but over 20,000 people had to be left behind, the bulk of which were captured and executed by the Bolsheviks. This has been nothing short of catastrophic. The final White stronghold in the west exists on the Crimean Peninsula, and General Denikin has resigned and fucked off into exile in favor of General Wrangel. It is unlikely that the Whites can truly come back from this, however. Guys, the northern Russia situation is kinda crazy. In September of 1919, Entente forces evacuated from the northern territories of Russia, including the major cities of Arkhangelsk and Murmansk. The Whites almost immediately collapsed in this region, and as of March 1920, the Bolsheviks are in complete control over northern Russia. It seems like things keep getting worse and worse for the anti-Bolshevik forces. Guys, the Ukraine situation has just gotten crazier. Yusuf Pilsudski and the Republic of Poland signed a treaty with the remnants of the Ukrainian People's Republic on April 21st, kicking off a Polish-Ukrainian offensive towards Kyiv. The Red Army disintegrated early on, with most of western Ukraine falling to the Poles and Kyiv itself being taken on May 7th. However, it seems like the Reds have been able to rally, diverting troops from the Crimean front, with Mikhail Tukhachevsky launching a massive attack in Belarus on the 14th, and Yegorov's army mobilizing a counterattack in Ukraine. By mid-June, the Poles have been driven back to basically their starting positions, and a sure victory has turned into a chaotic and disorganized retreat. Let me know what you guys think. Can Poland recover from this? They seem to have jumped the gun a fair bit, and the Bolsheviks seem primed to absolutely smoke them. Perhaps their revolution will be carried west after all. Guys, the White Army situation keeps getting sadder. General Wrangel has used the distraction caused by Poland to launch a final offensive in northern Taurida on June 6th. They made quick progress, getting as far east as Tokmak by August and pinning themselves against the Dnipro. Wrangel appears to be buying time for something with this offensive, but it's hard to say what at this stage. That said, there's always a chance that the war could be turned around. Piłsudski's counterattack will surely save the White cause. It could very much be soon totally over for the Bolsheviks. Guys, Mikhail Tukhachevsky is in some drama. Due to a series of miscommunications, overstretched supply lines, and a desperate Polish counterattack at a critical juncture of the front, the Red Army has been decisively routed at the gates of Warsaw. Budyonny's cavalry was shattered at Komarov, and by the end of September, the Reds had been driven from Poland and taken nearly 200,000 casualties. This has been catastrophic enough to convince the Bolsheviks of the need for peace, and it seems like Poland will escape with her independence intact. That said, the Bolsheviks seem to be retaining control over Ukraine, which means hopes for an independent Ukraine have been dashed decisively. An absolutely humiliating blow for the Red Army regardless, one that will surely hurt the career of Tukhachevsky. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think. Can Wrangel's army capitalize on this catastrophe, or will the loss of the Second Front doom their efforts? Guys, new drama just dropped from Mongolia of all places. A rogue white general named Roman von Ungern-Sternberg has invaded the Asian country and removed the Chinese from it. He has been declared Khan of Mongolia, and he apparently plans to use the country as a base to defeat the Bolsheviks and restore the Russian monarchy, while establishing a really weird federation. It's really minor, guys, and the Bolsheviks are already mobilizing to invade the country, but I just thought his Khan LARP was kind of funny. Remember the Czechoslovak Legion? Well, as of September, the last of the Legion have officially left Russia through Vladivostok. They were able to conclude peace with the Bolsheviks after kicking their asses repeatedly and are now on their way to their now independent homeland. Overall, they seem to have escaped the Russia situation with a pretty happy ending, keeping the majority of their army intact and being allowed safe passage home. That said, the White armies in Siberia have been catastrophically weakened, and it's likely a matter of time before the Bolsheviks are in Vladivostok. Gentlemen, I can finally say it. It is so fucking over for the Whites. After a determined Bolshevik and anarchist offensive, the White Army in Crimea has collapsed completely. On November 13th, Wrangel ordered an evacuation after the Bolsheviks breached the Perekop line, and after 146,000 soldiers and civilians evacuated from Sevastopol and other Crimean ports, the Reds paraded triumphantly through them. Wrangel himself was on the last ship out, with the new fleet of emigres dispersing across Europe. Those who had to be left behind were executed by the thousands by the Cheka. This brings the final front in the west to a close, with the exception of a few Bolshevik campaigns in the Caucasus. The Russia situation may very well be over. Guys, the Russia situation keeps finding new ways to be absolutely insane. On March 1st, sailors of the Baltic Fleet staged a revolt at the Kronstadt naval base. They demanded a reduction in Bolshevik power, as well as truly democratizing the country and granting more liberties to workers and peasants. Well, the Bolsheviks hate fun, and they dropped the hammer on the rebels, destroying them and executing thousands. It is highly unlikely that any more uprisings are going to break out after this, as the entire country has been basically destroyed over the past 4 years. The Russia situation may be nearing its end. The largest rebellion in Russia has officially been destroyed. The Tambov Rebellion, as it was called, broke out in 1920, and with the collapse of other organized resistance, the Bolsheviks were able to crush them. Tukhachevsky used tanks, aircraft, and even chemical weapons to suppress the rebellion in a massive display of brutality. It seems that the Bolsheviks are taking no chances cleaning up these rebellions, and they will likely be able to claim total victory in the Russia situation once they can stamp them all out. Fellas, it might be over for the anarchist cause in Russia. After the collapse of the Whites, the Bolsheviks almost immediately turned on their former allies. This kicked off nearly a full year of insurgency. The anarchists won numerous victories, but the Bolsheviks could replace their losses, and by the spring of 1921, the anarchists had suffered several critical defeats, with Nestor Makhno himself being wounded multiple times. As of the end of August, Makhno and most of his men have been interned in Romania after fleeing the country, with scattered anarchist remnants carrying on the fight. That said, these insurgencies are likely not long for this world, and the Bolsheviks have seemingly succeeded in consolidating their hold. Remember that Sternberg guy? Well, the Bolsheviks defeated him, and on September 15th he was executed. With his death, the White armies in Siberia are dead men walking. It's only a matter of time before they break as well. Fellas, I don't know how to say this, but the Russia situation is, in fact, finally over. The final White Russian government based in Vladivostok has officially collapsed and capitulated after White forces fled into China and Japanese intervention forces evacuated. The only remaining resistance is a Yakut uprising and a small White force around Okhotsk, but these are not long for this world, and will likely be liquidated in 1923. With the capture of Vladivostok, however, the Bolsheviks can officially be declared the victors of this massive conflict. Gentlemen, the Russian drama has reached its conclusion. On December 30th of 1922, the Russian Federative Soviet Socialist Republic, the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, the Belarusian Soviet Socialist Republic, and the Transcaucasian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic formally merged by treaty. Russia is no more, and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or USSR, has been proclaimed. Extra special thanks to the members of my Politburo that support me on Patreon, with a special shout out to Ukrainian Shadow Government, Charles Yalak, Peter Bardos, Ministry of Autismus Affairs, Wolf Commissar, Jonathan Hernandez, Cheese122, A Normal Cow 5, Black Mare, Smoothie Who, Andrew Deffenbaugh, Jay, Ray Nertz, Ouch That Hurt, Seor, Harper's Ferry Blues, Zaim Z, Greek Nationalist, and the Flag and Anthem Guy. Consider joining them if you want some extra Spartan content, or if you're just an absolute giga-chad. Your support helps make surviving this world a hell of a lot easier. Trotsky is soon plus 2 weeks, I swear. Hopefully. That about does it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.